A federal judge blocks Ohio's plans for requiring a parent's permission for anyone under the age of 16 to have a social media account on apps, including Meta's platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. The judge citing free speech laws in his decision. 21 News at 5 legal expert Brian Kopp is back to go over this latest legal decision and what lawmakers here in Ohio could try instead. Now, Brian, NetChoice sued the state of Ohio over the law that would have made kids under the age of 16 have to get their parents' permission to access social media apps. The judge permanently struck down the law, saying that it would have unconstitutionally restricted the First Amendment rights of both minors under 16 and the platforms themselves. So where does the law draw the line on free speech? Explain that.
You know, the Constitution's pretty clear. Congress shall pass no law. So, when you hear about conservative or activist judges, this is a very conservative interpretation of how the Constitution treats the First Amendment. So I think that the court was very clear in the sense that we have two issues that are at play here. One is government should not interfere with the right to speech and the right for people to not only hear news, but to speak out themselves. And secondly is, the government's intruding into what the parental and child relationship is when it says, we're going to tell you how to raise your children or how to handle their interaction with society by way of social media. So it's not surprising. I think it's consistent. But I think you're going to continue to have these fights until it ultimately gets to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and the judge said, as you mentioned, the law is at an intersection where you have that freedom of speech and expression and the rights of a parent to direct the upbringing of their child free from unnecessary government intrusion, is what the judge said. So do parents not have the final say on what their kid or teen can access?
Well, at this point, the court's pretty clear. At least what Ohio tried to legislate is not going to survive. Is there some form that maybe a court would let go? Yes. I mean, the courts do tell us, or the legislature does tell us, and the courts have supported it. I mean, you're not allowed to drive until you're 16 in states. You're not allowed to drink until you're at a certain age. I mean, technically, those are a form of parental rights in a way. If somebody, going back 100 years ago, if somebody wanted to let a child drive at 14, there was no problem with that. If somebody wanted to let a child drink at 17, there was no problem with that. These things have changed over time. Do I think that there'll eventually be a form of legislation that will survive the strict scrutiny of a constitutional question? Maybe, but I think it's going to continue to grow until the Supreme Court gets its hands on it and defines this new body of law.
Yeah, aside from us parents maybe holding allowance over their heads.
Yes.
Yeah, we were all watching this go down. We're hoping for an excuse. The Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, he's ready to appeal and find another avenue. The thought now is to force Google and the app stores to enforce this requirement. How tough is that approach, given not every single state is going to have this type of age restriction?
Hey, that's the key. The other thing that's here is we're looking at an Ohio statute, but the states are not allowed to regulate interstate commerce. Only Congress is. So when you make a law that interferes with how activities are from state to state, that's usually a no-no in legal terms. So I just think, this is a little political right now. The state of Ohio was beat. I think the governor feels it's the right thing to do. He's stating maybe a little bit more of his feelings as opposed to what the legal basis is. I don't see this going anywhere on appeal.
Okay, Brian Kopp, thank you so much for joining us here. We've seen other challenges from NetChoice in other states like California, Arkansas, Utah. We'll continue to follow them here in Ohio. Thank you for your help tonight.
All right, you have a great week.